How's it going, folks? Greg Carlwood here, your humble host of the Higherside Chats podcast, a marijuana-fueled romp through the worlds of conspiracy, the paranormal, and the all-around fringe, where I focus on trying to provide the best interviews with the most interesting guests on a whole host of strange and suppressed topics. And to celebrate our 100th episode, we had 13 of my favorite guests pop in for short 10 to 15-minute segments, and some of them were so interesting that I wanted to pull them out of that massive 3-hour show and let them be appreciated on their own in a way that's easier to find and share and all that good stuff. So pack your glass and park your ass, people, and get your mind right for the journey ahead, because these, my friends, are the Higherside Chats. Here we have Lenon Honor, the man with the plan. He was my guest on episode 72, where we talked about media manipulation cycles and some important family man issues. And now he's been kind enough to appear on a 100th episode special. Lenon, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Greg. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you again.
Of course, man. I agree. You're always throwing out a good, honest perspective on what it means to be a stronger partner and a good family man in these troubled times, rather than just being tossed around at society's whim like so many people allow themselves to be. So I really enjoy your material, man. I saw you just gave a big lecture, 7 things every man can do to prepare for a positive relationship, and I thought maybe we could talk about that a bit. Would you mind giving the people a little info about that presentation?
Yes. So I have quite a few lectures, and one of them is 7 things that every man can do to prepare for a positive relationship. And I talk about how many of us males, we are programmed. A lot of it has to do with media manipulation to always be in pursuit mode. We're always trying to find someone. We're always trying to make a relationship happen. We're always trying to find some woman somewhere. But we don't take the time to actually prepare for a positive relationship. And so I go through a process of sharing 7 things that every man can do to actually prepare for a positive relationship. I also outlined that it's not about whether or not someone is deserving of a positive relationship. It's really about whether or not we are prepared. And in life, whatever it may be, it's about preparation. And if we are prepared for something, then when we have it, we can deal with it accordingly. But if we're not prepared, even when we have it, we're going to end up at failure. It will end in failure. So that's what that lecture is about. I provide 7 things. And the most important thing I have on the list is that it's important for men to heal from past relationships with women. That can be our mothers, that can be our sisters, our aunts, our grandmothers, so forth and so on. So that's the number one thing that any man can do, is to heal from past relationships with women.
Mm-hmm. There seems to be a lot of baggage carried around. What do you think contributes to that? You think that's basically, again, just people being caught up in society's version of what a positive male-female relationship should be?
Yes, that's part of it. I would also say, in terms of the baggage, a lot of it has to do with the social programming wherein men, we're not considered to be healers. In other words, the notion of healing concedes that you have been traumatized, and therefore, as a man, somehow that means that you're less than a man because you have been traumatized. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? It goes back to one of the topics we talked about in the last interview, dealing with September 11th. A lot of people don't want to talk about September 11th because it stirs particular traumas in them that they don't necessarily want to deal with. Where in the scope of male-female relationships, if you've been traumatized by a woman, by your mother, by an ex, by a past girlfriend, by your sister teased you, these types of things. And then you have to acknowledge the trauma. For some men, because of social programming, it's almost like men, you don't heal. That's what you don't do, because you're less than a man if you do. Well, I'm here to tell you all, and any man who's listening here, that if you've been traumatized, it weakens you as a man. If you heal yourself, you become strong again. And you have to be strong in this sense in order to be prepared for a positive relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great advice. And you mentioned trauma. And last time we talked was right in the middle of that big Syria crisis where we were going to go to war with Syria. The media's trying to push it, but people were pushing back. And how do you see the media manipulation, and specifically on the trauma cycle? How is that manifesting now? Are there things going out there right now that are kind of preying upon resurrecting that trauma for people?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we talked about the 911 fear-based mind control program, and I talk about this inside my book. For those of you all, you can find the book on my website, LenonHonor.com. But there's 2 particular media cycles wherein the re-traumatization of the population, of the global population, takes place around terrorism and terrorist threats, so forth and so on. Let me just give real quickly here. There's 2 main cycles, and they happen every single year. And this is wherein mass media issues particular stories that trigger the trauma of September 11, 2001. The first cycle takes place within the 4 weeks leading up to May 1st of any given year. The other cycle, which is the main media cycle, takes place in the 6 weeks leading up to September 11, 2001. Right now, there are some rumblings, okay, because there's the Olympics, the Winter Olympics.
Right.
Anytime Olympics comes around, there's always this terrorist propaganda. Nothing ever happens, but it still triggers the trauma of September 11th. Now, it's interesting because in addition to the Olympics, there's also particular movies and particular television shows that are going to be revisited within this time, within the next, let's say, 2 months leading. And again, we'll get into May, those 4 weeks leading up into May 1st. And I just want to outline one movie and one television show. One of the movies happens to be Captain America. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is very specific. Captain America is all about, what do they call this? You have to be patriotic about, for America.
Right.
And there's always a superhero, always a supervillain. This ties to the supervillain that we call Osama bin Laden. The superhero in this sense would be Barack Obama. Okay, so Osama bin Laden's death supposedly May 1st, May 2nd. So you always get this programming in the 2 weeks leading up to May 1st, May 2nd of any given year since the supposed death of Osama bin Laden, which was also a psyops. Now, in addition to that, there's also a television show that's coming back, and that television show is 24. Okay, and this is one of the preeminent propagandization of the concept of terrorism. Over the last 5 years, it actually ended. They ended that series, but they're bringing it back right in time for May 1st. Okay, that's not by accident, because what we're going to see is this particular year, it's going to be much more significant in terms of the terrorist propaganda in that 4 weeks leading up into May 1st. This is perfectly predictable, and y'all can watch it take place, because today, what are we on, February 22nd?
Right.
You'll see it play out within those 4 weeks leading into May 1st, and this happens every single year. I should also mention that it's not like these types of stories don't take place throughout the year. Terrorisms, Al-Qaeda threats, Arab Spring, all of this propaganda. It's not that it doesn't happen at other times in the year, but there is a heavy concentration in the 4 weeks leading up to May 1st, which is associated with the supposed death of Osama bin Laden. And of course, Osama bin Laden being associated as, or being defined, propagandized as the mastermind of September 11th. And so that triggers the trauma of September 11th. But then we also have, within the 6 weeks leading up to September 11th, the same types of stories start to be infused into the news. It's perfectly predictable, and it's concentrated. Stories about Al-Qaeda, stories about terror threats, unconfirmed, probable and unconfirmed terror threats, so forth and so on. All this is outlined in the book. Those are the 2 media cycles. It's perfectly predictable, and y'all can watch it unfold right before your eyes. I call it the Global Motion Picture Stage Show.
And I love that. And another thing that ties into that and this terror propaganda, it was the Super Bowl. I mean, talk about security theater. All over the news, they were talking about how much security there was and how dangerous a time it was. And then some journalist who just on a whim decided to see how far he could go, went in the Super Bowl without a ticket, right up to the press table, and started talking to the mic about 9/11. And it just goes to show you, like, all that money, all that effort into security, I think security theater is the perfect term, because clearly a guy could just walk up and talk if he wants to.
Yes. And see, that's the thing. Nothing ever happens. I want people to think about this. Terrorism in the United States, and even if you want to call September 11th terrorism, because the official version in terms of what was propagandized, absolutely fanciful. Mm-hmm. But if you want to take that, if you want to use that and accept the official version of September 11th, if you think about it, there hasn't been a terrorist attack, meaning Al-Qaeda here in the United States. We're just going to assume that what, the propagandization of September 11, 2001 was true. Okay, since September 11, 2001, we're talking almost 13 years now. And yet, anytime there's a major sporting event, there's the Olympics, there's all of this propaganda about terrorism, and nothing happens. But still, what does happen, I'm saying nothing happens in terms of terrorism, but what does happen is that people are put back into a state of fear. And as I say inside the book, the greatest means of control is not actualized through military might, physical subjugation, or brute force. The greatest means of control is actualized through the psychological manipulation of the global population. This psychological manipulation is actualized through fear itself. So if you can keep people in a state of perpetual fear, you re-traumatize them. They're fearful. They externalize power, and that's how you maintain people inside a state of control. I would dare say that the concept of global terrorism is a fallacy, and yet people still become fearful whenever there's some sort of a sporting event, whenever there's anytime media reports on potential Al-Qaeda attacks, but nothing has happened for 13 years at least. And the truth of the matter is it hasn't happened because September 11, 2001 was a psyops, and it had nothing to do with this mythical terrorist organization, Al-Qaeda, or Osama bin Laden, a.k.a. Cobra Commander, this ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. Welcome to the Global Motion Picture Stage Show.
Well said, man. And I totally agree with you. It's kind of messed up. The boogeyman doesn't seem to exist, but people are so focused on that what if, well, what if, I know nothing's happened, but, tomorrow could be the day. And people just get obsessed with that. That's
right. And that's the program response. Well, it's better to be careful because you never know. Today might be the day. Well, you're living in fear. You're living in fear. It's absolutely ridiculous. We can't live that way. And if you're living in fear, you're always externalizing power. And as long as you externalize power, you will be stuck in a state of control.
I agree. And before I let you go, man, one other thing I wanted to talk about. You did a presentation, a little Q&A, I guess. It was a Q&A video that you made, and you talked about something that we haven't really talked about on the show much, but I totally am right in line with you, and that's the illusion of the college degree. And I think that's something that probably resonates with the listeners right now. I know a lot of college is super expensive, and the economy is kicking a lot of asses right now, and there's a temptation to go back to school because it's the only option that conventional society gives us, and it's probably the only advice that a lot of parents are giving. So I wanted to ask you, when someone's stuck at that very common crossroads, how would you advise them to proceed?
And see, my wife and I, this is what we're teaching our children. We homeschool our children, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I went to college myself 5 years. My degree is completely useless. It has no bearing in terms of my level of intellectual aptitude. In point of fact, when I got out of college, when I reflect back, it was like, where was my mentality at? Okay, it's quite amazing. This does not mean that a college degree can't help people, but I want people to understand that it will not solve your problems in life. It will not solve your financial issues in life because it's not designed to do that. Most people that I know that I went to college with, they are dealing in fields and working in fields and have been for a decade, almost 2 decades now, that have absolutely nothing to do with their degree. So I think it's important, if you're going to go to college, you better be clear that your degree is worth something. And when I say worth something, I'm not saying financially, I'm saying that it's viable in the world, meaning that it can allow you to be put in a position to where you can get a reasonable job where you are being paid well. But even beyond that, okay, because I'm by no means suggesting that people should not consider going to college. I'm just saying you better make sure you know why you're going. You make sure that you're pursuing a degree in a field that is going to actually provide you with an opportunity to get a job that will allow you to live a relatively financially secure life, even though there's really no such thing as financial security. What I often recommend people to do is to look to their creativity. In other words, look to what you can do that you enjoy, because this gets to your life purpose, meaning why am I here on the planet? You look to your creativity and you say, what can I do creative in order to generate the income that I want? This is when you get into entrepreneurship. You can own your own business. This is what my wife and I do. And we're raising 5 children, and we have our own internet-based businesses, which have absolutely nothing to do with the degree or the field that I studied in and the field that my wife studied in. So when times get rough, because a lot of people, because they're fearful and they don't know how things are going to turn out financially and global markets, so forth and so on, oftentimes people think, well, okay, what I need to do is I need to go back and maybe get another degree, or I need to go and finish up that degree. That's possible, but it may be that it's time for you to invest your effort and your energies into your own creativity, and then allow your own creativity to generate the income through entrepreneurship or through a home-based business or through a brick-and-mortar business. We should consider that too. And the reason why that's important is 2 main reasons. One is that it really does free you up to do the things that you want to do in life. In other words, it frees you up to fulfill your life purpose. For you, Greg, your life purpose, you're a good interviewer. This is part of your life purpose.
Thanks,
you see what
man.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in that sense, it frees you up to really get to the core essence of why you are here on the planet. And that's invaluable. More than making money with your degree, it's invaluable. But the other thing is that it offers you an opportunity, it offers all of us an opportunity to dream bigger, to have a deeper vision as to what's possible in our life financially, because many people, when it's the 9 to 5 and they're getting the consistent check, their sense of what's possible in their life in terms of abundance and financially is limited. And I want people to understand that you can actually expand beyond the constructs that we've been led to adopt in the 9 to 5 realm, because business ownership, it takes on a different dimension. You're working for yourself, entrepreneurship, and also in terms of the financial rewards that come through hard work, dedication, building your business over time. The financial rewards will far exceed any 9 to 5 job. Well, not any, most 9 to 5 jobs. So I want people to think about that too. Pursue your own creativity. You can also still pursue those degrees, but understand that simply pursuing a degree or getting a degree is not going to solve your financial issues. It never does. It's not designed to do that. What getting the degrees is designed to do is to put you in a position to get a job that you may not necessarily like and may not necessarily pay you the way that you need to be paid. So this is something that people need to think and be clear about. If you're going to go to college, make sure you know why you're going. Also, real quickly, make sure you understand the financial ramifications if you go to college and it's not being financed by someone who's not charging you interest on a loan. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. Make sure you understand that system, the loan system, the debt system too, because a lot of us, we go to college, we get into extreme levels of debt, and it haunts us for the rest of our lives. And we may be in a job, but it's really just indentured servitude so that we can pay back the loans, and then we can live a mediocre life materially in the process for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Some things for people to think about.
Great advice. Yeah, it is important to remember the college degree is not Willy Wonka's golden ticket. I've been preaching that for a long time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. I'm sure somewhere in the next 100 episodes, we'll talk again for a full show, but thanks for taking the time to do this little pop-in. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Greg. And again, congratulations on the 100th episode, and I wish you hundreds and hundreds and thousands more. I do appreciate it, bro.
Thanks, man. You want to let the people know where they can check out more of your stuff before you go real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 websites, LenonHonor.com, LenonHonor.com. And that's where I focus in on personal growth, manhood, family, so forth and so on. And then I also have another website, LenonHonorFilms.com. And that's where I have all of my documentary work on media manipulation, so forth and so on. Come on over when y'all have some time. I'm also on Facebook under Lenon Honor, and I have a YouTube page under Lenon Honor. I really appreciate the opportunity, Greg. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Peace.